Nick Wright, first things first, he's crushing. He is absolutely crushing. I feel, I get it. I think Philadelphia is somewhere in the AFC top 10. Niners somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think you got that right. J-Mac took the words out of my mouth on two of the points. You are way too high on the Rams, like ridiculously too high on the Rams. I always thought you were a Derek Carr guy, and so you're just abandonment of Derek Carr, and you're blaming it on, the coaching. Dennis Allen is not a good NFL head coach, I agree with you, but you liked Derek Carr with Josh McDaniels, and now all of a sudden coaching's the issue. But here's where you're brilliant. This is where I'll just never be able to be Colin Cowherd, no matter how long I try. Colin just did a whole, guys, buckle up. My shocking prediction is the team that finished 11th in the NFC last year will finish 10th. Oh my goodness gracious. My eyebrows were singed by how hot that take was. You're like the Panthers. Look out for the Panthers. I've got them 10th in a 16-team conference. That's not exactly going out on a limb, Cowherd.
Yeah. Well, that's why the show continues to reign.
I know. No, that's what I'm saying. You're just the best. It's just I was wrapped with attention. Like, who's he gonna have there? And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense. Go ahead.
Okay, people I respect, you being one of them, think the Lakers are a good matchup. But I said yesterday, in the playoffs, you really see this. Do you have players that are great at stuff? Draymond's a great defender. Looney's a great rebounder. Gary Payton's a great defender. Steph's a great shooter. Clay's a great spot-up shooter. Kerr's a great situational coach. There's a lot of great. Whereas AD is a great defensive player. LeBron in spurts now is great. But, boy, it's a bunch of D'Angelo Russells and Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. I don't see, at LeBron's age, enough great here. I think it's a quick Warriors series. What say you?
Quick is okay. You've now gone too far. Before I even answer this, I must address the elephant in the room, which is Sunday. I'm sitting on my couch. We are not 8 minutes removed from Steph Curry figuratively lighting his own beam and dispatching of my beloved Kings. And my phone starts buzzing, and I look down, and it's Colin Cowherd's face on my caller ID. And I was so disgusted, I hit the bleep you button, not answering that, and text him. I'm not emotionally prepared for this conversation. Listen, Colin and I talk often, but it's not like we talk every day. And that phone call, while he couched it in, I have this amazing take you want to hear, what the phone call actually was about was a victory lap because his Warriors beat my Kings. Yeah. So I am on this show only in protest, only out of my loyalty to FS1 and this network. Because you and I are done personally. This is a professional relationship only until the Lakers dispatch of the Warriors, which they will. So let me explain why I disagree with you on this series. First of all, since the All-Star break, the Lakers have the best record in the NBA. Second of all, I think you and I are looking at this differently. You're right. The Warriors have a handful of guys that do individual things well. I am more interested in how many guys do you have that are two-way players. And Payton, you're right, is an excellent defender, but a 0 on offense. Looney is an excellent rebounder, but a 0 on everything else. Draymond is one of the best defenders ever, and occasionally, at this point in his career, is an offensive asset, but sometimes he just kills your spacing. And then you have Steph, one of the greatest players in the history of the game in offense unto himself. What is most interesting about this series, Colin, is this. It is going to be a culture shock for both teams. So the Lakers are going to have to instantly adjust from going up against the worst shooting team in the playoffs to the best shooting team in the playoffs. How quickly can they adjust? The Warriors are going to have to instantly adjust from going up against the worst defensive team in the playoffs to the best defensive team in the playoffs. But the Lakers' size, strength, and power, I think, is too much. I also think that the Warriors having to go 7 games and now this series being every other day is a huge benefit for the Lakers in game 1 where they steal home court advantage tonight. And I think this series goes with the exact same beats as the Memphis series. The Lakers win game 1 and go undefeated at home in games 3, 4, and 6. And so I disagree with you on that. I give the Warriors credit, but I think it should be noted that in a game where the Kings' best player clearly was not himself with the broken finger, as I told you was going to happen, he couldn't dribble the ball. Once again, they got nothing from Herter, they get nothing from Barnes, they get nothing from Davion Mitchell. It took one of the greatest games of Steph Curry's life to put that game away. I think the Lakers are the better team. I think they're the more physical team. And I think Anthony Davis, coming off the best defensive series of his life, is going to be the best player on the court in this series. Well, he's going to be the most impactful player on the court. Steph, I'm not disrespecting what Steph's done.
All right, before we get to Philadelphia, Boston, I said earlier, I have no problem saying that Steph is one of the most influential players in basketball history, the best point guard, the best shooter, the best leader, arguably in history. Many don't. We can argue top 10, top 15, whatever. But I offered this to the audience. A UFO lands, or somebody that's never seen basketball, and you could do this with art and music, and say, what does basketball look like? And you would say, I'm going to give you 7 players, all great, all unique, and it will describe the beauty and the majesty of basketball. And they would be Kareem, Jordan, LeBron, Steph, Magic, Bird, and Shaq. And the 2 big men were different. One was stoic, had a great unstoppable shot. The other was wildly dynamic as a personality, Shaq, and could run the floor in his prime. Those 7. Kobe is just MJ light. KD and Dirk play too similarly. I don't know where Steph fits all time. But I don't care if somebody lands off a UFO and you said, describe music. I'd say, here's Beethoven, here's the Beatles, here's Beyonce. I'd give you 7 different styles, all unique and great. And it would give you a sense of what music can be. Probably Prince is in there as well. What do you make of this? That I don't know how to classify Steph, but he is in a group, the 7 Wonders, that I think he has to be included in this group.
So I agree with you entirely, and I took a slightly different tact on this yesterday, which is if all of American history were distilled down into one book, and the NBA got 1 page of that book, who are the people who have to be included in order to accurately tell the story of the entire story of the league in 1 page? And I had those 7 guys plus Russell, Wilt, Dr. J, and Kobe as the 11 most important figures in basketball's history. Steph is unquestionably one of them now. And when it comes to all-time rankings, here is the hang-up for Steph. So Steph, arguably the greatest teammate ever, inarguably the greatest winner ever, has won at a level that it can look eye to eye with basically everyone, is within reaching distance of everyone from a winning perspective, except for Russell. So why would some people have problems putting him ahead of Bird or Kobe or Duncan? And the answer is very simple. Steph, for how brilliant he's been, if you look at his career, as far as first-team All-NBAs, as far as top 5 MVP finishes, has only had 4 historic seasons. He has 4 first-team All-NBAs. He has 4 top 5 MVP finishes. For context, Bird had 9. Magic had 9 of each. Duncan had 10 first-team All-NBAs and 9 top 5 MVP finishes. Kobe had, I think, 12 first-team All-NBAs and 11 top 5 MVP finishes. So it's really a question of what are you valuing? Because as far as totality of great seasons, Steph does not measure up with those people. A lot of people have him jumping. As far as individual impact, he is one of the 7 or 8 most impactful players I've ever seen. And here's the last wrinkle of it for Steph, Colin. Because he is an offense unto himself just by virtue of existing, because just by having him on the court, you instill a level of panic and in the defense and spacing in your offense that is immensely valuable. If he wants to keep playing into his late 30s, early 40s, he will be able to. He won't be able to get to the basket, won't be able to do all those things, but he will be a valuable player for essentially ever if he wants to. And that's where he can really climb the record books.
We could talk about Harden. It does feel like an outlier. He averaged 17 a game and shot 34% against Brooklyn. He just had a great night. There was real clarity with no Embiid. James knew, it's me and Maxey. We got to get us past Boston. Whereas Boston, late in the game, didn't know what the hell to do with Tatum. He had 4 shots in the quarter. That was one fewer than Malcolm Brogdon. So they were a mess. But it does point to something that you've been on for years. I have liked the mission and the ascension of Boston, but I think we've hit a point. And the point is, okay, we probably have a coach who's not as good as last year's coach. Tatum is what he is. I watched old man Harden, old man LeBron against Memphis, old man Steph say, I'm taking the game over. Tatum's last 3 possessions, last 4. Marcus Smart's taking the ball late. Where are we with Boston? Like I do think you gotta shake this thing up if they don't win a title. Don't you?
Well, if they don't win this series, there's going to be some very, very difficult questions to answer. They went into last night's game plus 125 to win the title. Almost even money to win the title. We're in round 2. They were minus 580 for the series. And that's because there's no Embiid. People don't trust the Sixers, who, by the way, Philadelphia has 0 losses this postseason. Even though Embiid's only been healthy for 2 of the games and only been available for 3 of them, you would think Philly would get some respect, but set that aside. The Celtics, the question people have to ask themselves is twofold. One is, when is the last time you watched the Celtics and said they look like a championship team? The answer is the game they played against Milwaukee a month ago when they beat them by 40. There has not been a single moment this postseason that the Celtics have looked like the team that they are supposed to be. They struggled with Atlanta, and by the way, that Game 5 at home loss to Atlanta, I said it at the time and we saw it last night. Devastating loss. Not because they were going to lose the series, but because what did that allow? It kicked this series start until Monday instead of starting on Saturday. They would have gotten Philly for 2, maybe 3 games without Embiid, and who knows? Now, Philly got more rest. Embiid now is probably not going to have to play until Friday. They're in really good shape in that regard because Boston wasn't able to take care of business. The other issue for Boston is this. What is going on with Jaylen Brown? He was 6 of 7 in the first quarter. He finished 8 of 10. That means he took 3 shots the rest of the game.
Yep.
He also has this cut on his shooting hand that he got from picking up a broken vase. Okay. Also, in yesterday's press conference, he talked about at the end of the game he wanted to run, but he looked around and his teammates weren't running with him, and he needed people to be running with him. He's given 2 very interesting interviews, one with The Ringer, one with the New York Times, about issues in Boston and clearly being upset about how he is perpetually in trade rumors. I say all that to say this. If they win the title, he's going to be All-NBA probably this year. They give him the Supermax, everything's happy. If they lose in round 2 to a Sixers team that isn't fully whole, I think there are very difficult questions to answer in Boston, and my guess is the Jaylen Brown future becomes one of them.
Yeah, no, he'd have a great market. He plays on both ends. He still feels like he gets better, a little better every year. Yeah. Nick Wright. First things first, we have now only a professional relationship. I'll have to live with that.
No, only.
Maybe I'll.
No, it's only. Colin calls me. He's like, listen to this take. How about this? All this stuff. And it's just needling me. It's just about the Warriors beating the Kings. That's all it was about. Well, you tried to pretend it wasn't. It was outrageous. So I'm just letting you know right now.
Yeah.
I am going to FaceTime you and potentially record when the Lakers knock out the Warriors. And you're going to be a couple vodka sodas deep and very teary-eyed. I know it.
It'll be more than a couple. Nick Wright, first things first. Good seeing you, bud.